Well, welcome to the stream, y'all. I'm going to try to build out a drop-down. So let's look at examples. And this is what a drop-down kind of looks like. You know, obviously it looks like, is this a drop-down you guys have in mind? So a button, you click it, it has a little panel. Let's try to figure this out live. I don't think it should be too hard, hopefully, knock on wood. Probably like a 2-hour stream of me making a button. So let's just make a little drop-down widget. So in Next, typically what you do is you have a components folder. And I can make a new component called dropdown.ts. All right, so let's work on a drop-down widget. And TypeScript's also kind of new to me, so like if there's anything I'm doing wrong with TypeScript, like let me know. But let's go ahead in this drop-down. We can add a button. And let's make sure that this button says drop-down. And nothing's showing up because I obviously haven't even imported it here. Let's do this. This is what we're building. I need to have like a little caret, which maybe we'll install like a font library in a bit, but let's just keep this simple. So in the dropdown, it's showing up on the page now. Might be pretty small. We want to style it to make it like a little bit gray. So I believe there is VG gray 400 or something, and we can like make this look a little nicer. And there's also the ability to, I have to remember my head is in the top right corner of this page, so I might be blocking some stuff. When you hover over it, let's just have BG gray go from lighter to darker. I don't know what the proper UX stuff is. Is it darker the lighter? I guess I could find out on any other type of. Looks like it's usually darker to lighter. I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's add some padding to this. So one attribute is like you could do EX of 2 maybe. That'll add some padding to the left and right. It looks a little bit better. And then obviously the text. How do I do? Let's see. I think it's like text white. All right. Anyway, so we're trying to round it too. So I think there's a, you could say rounded or something in Tailwind. And that'll make the button look a little rounded. And if we look at the image, they have a little bit more padding on top, I believe. So we could probably just like EY of 1. And I don't know if there's like a convention, like you should probably put your padding kind of close together. But yeah, this looks okay, I guess. Let's just add some overall padding to the page so we can say 44. Yeah, that's way too much. 12. Here we go. I just wanted to kind of get it out of the top right corner. So if you click on this button, we need to kind of add some functionality to show a panel, right? And we'll come back and add a little down caret. So how do you do that? Well, let's go to the drop down, and typically you have to use some type of state. So we'll say const is expanded, set is expanded equals use state. I'll say false. So by default, it doesn't actually show the panel below. Now to get this to work, what we're probably going to have to do is we're probably going to have to like wrap this in a div so that we can put a panel and have it not be displayed. So I'm going to say if it is expanded, I'll go ahead and show another div, which we could like start styling as well. And what do we want this panel to be? I guess background color could be white. How do they in the image? I think the page is like an off-white, like an eggshell. So we might need to go back to the page, which is here, and maybe it makes more sense to put that in the global. I don't really know. Let's just try putting it here. I can say background is gray of 50. And that did change the background, but it only changed it for my little app component. So I think maybe we have to like, we might have to go in here, do something. Or we need to apply it to the body. I mean, you could also do like H full, I believe, and that'll kind of expand this whole thing to be the full page. At least I thought it did, but I guess not, because why not? So h-full makes, I think, the div expand to match its parent's height. But we probably need to just apply this color to the body, to be honest. So I guess the best way to do that is go to the global. And I think you can say body apply. Apply is like a special keyword you can do to kind of apply other Tailwind classes. So I can say BG gray 50. That do the trick? Looks like it did. All right, just figuring stuff out. All right, anyway, so we kind of got distracted with coloring the background color. So let's actually make it so you unclick this thing. You want to basically set this expanded to be true, probably. Or we could do a toggle functionality if you want to. All right, so let's double check that this panel is actually showing up. So I'm gonna put some text here that says like panel. And it does look like there is a panel here. Like if I were to make this a different color, you could easily see it. Maybe I should do gray of 100 here. Okay, I think that looks better. All right, so what are we building? We are building this, we're trying to build this thing. So this thing has some border on it. So I think what we could do is we can go back to the drop down, and on the panel, we could say border. And that adds a little bit of border to it. It's also a little bit rounded. As you can tell here, this is squared, but if you look at the actual image, they round the edges a little bit. So we could just say like rounded here. And there you have it. You got a rounded panel. Padding, obviously, we should add some padding. Probably want to keep it consistent like with the button, just so you have like a consistent look and feel. So whatever padding we use here, maybe we should also use here. What do I need to do here? So inside the image, they have some items. So maybe we can do some type of some proper React component where we take in a list of options, something, and options will be an array of string. Okay, again, we are using TypeScript, so I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm passing options here, and we are going to pass it an array of strings. So this image has item 1, 2, 3. So item 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Make sure this shows up. Well, I guess it wouldn't show up because I haven't actually compiled it. But let's just go ahead and map. So I'm going to say, what did I call it? Options.map. And then for every option that we have, we need to create another div. I know people use like ULs and LIs. I don't know if that's better in terms of like semantic HTML. Probably is, but we're just keep it with divs. With Tailwind, it doesn't really matter because like everything's styled. Like everything doesn't have a style in Tailwind by default, I believe. So like even if I put the UL, it's going to look exactly the same as like a div and stuff. But let's just try putting a list item and see what happens. So I'm going to say option.name. Clean this up a little bit. I'm just going to put name here. Wait, it's not option.name. These are strings. So Tailwind would probably, TypeScript will probably complain I'm doing that. Missing key. So key could be option. Now this, I guess technically I should use index here because option is just going to have like potentially duplicates. I guess you shouldn't have duplicates, but let's just see. We got item 1, 2, 3. So now what we want to do is I'm assuming that they have some type of hover state. When you hover over the item, it changes it to blue. So let's try doing that. Go back to the drop down and let us style this thing. So I'm going to say class name is equal to let me put this stuff on some new lines. I need to also set up my eslint. I like my code looking like this, so every property is on its like new line. I haven't yet gone to eslint and set that up. I don't remember what the rule is, and I don't want to waste time doing that, but I like my code when it's like everything is, I don't know, formatted this way. But that's a better approach there. Last name. So if I hover over this thing, I want to say hover colon BG blue. Let's do 400. See how that looks. That kind of close? No, I think they're using like something darker. Let's do 500. And then obviously when it's hovered over, they change the text to white. So I need to also say hover text white. I think I called hover wrong. So we could do some more padding to these items. Again, like we could just try to do the default padding. In fact, I'm not trying to do that. I don't know if this is a good approach, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a new class called like padding D default. And I'm just gonna apply padding X2 and padding Y1. Just so that like every component has a very similar padding. And let's see if this works. If I add that here, notice that the item has some cool padding. Also, let's do it here and there. Don't know if that's a good approach, but I think you should try to clean up code wherever you can. Now, one thing I noticed that there's no like cursor when I hover over these items. I don't know how to do that. It's just like cursor pointer. Looking good. Obviously the width of this thing is a little large. Like you don't want your drop down to be like 4 times the size of your button, right? So actually, if we want to duplicate this exactly, this thing doesn't even have padding on the left or the right. So I need to actually go back. And maybe this is why you don't do something like this, because every component is going to be so unique. So like this doesn't need any padding, or this one doesn't need any padding X, I believe, the panel. Just keep it blank and go back here. We don't need that. Just changing my mind on stuff. But the thing that does need padding is obviously the item. Okay, so this looks a little bit better. You know what would make this stream probably better is so we can actually see what we're trying to build in the UI. So I think we lost support for the cursor. So let me go back here and say cursor pointer. Let's add in the carrots here. And let's try to figure out how to do that. So I've been using React Phosphor. As you can tell, I made meatballs last night. Those are the recipes I was looking at. Be careful of my histories, huh? You know what I'm cooking every night. There's a bunch of different icon libraries, I guess. I'm using this one on a side project. I don't know what the best library is. Usually I use Font Awesome, but this one has been pretty easy to just like install an icon and use it. So I might just do the same thing here. Go ahead and add this one. And we can kind of use it. Go ahead. There we go. Close my debugger. You guys don't need to see that. So to use it, let's just go ahead and import this. And let's see if we can like get an icon to display. I might need to install a, do they have types declared here? It might just come defaulted. So let's look at the drop down. So inside the drop down itself, which is this, we need to display an icon. So let's go back and we see an icon display. So that's kind of working. But let's go back and look at the actual list of icons that they have. And let's see, do they have a search bar here? Or icons? Search bar. We want to look for carrot. That's called a carrot down. Or maybe it's called a chevron. Chevron. Okay, well, I only have access to carrot down. So I'm going to go ahead and grab carrot down. And I'm going to use that instead. And then I'm assuming, does the carrot usually change? I think it does. So like when it's dropped down, it has the down icon. When it's not, it either has like the right icon. Let me know in chat if you are a UX person. I might just do, I think it's a carrot right. Does that sound right? All right, so if it's expanded, I'm gonna go ahead and say, go the down. Go ahead and do this. Show the down if it is expanded. If it's not expanded, then I'm gonna show the right. Now, something I've noticed a lot of people doing in React is they'll do ternary statements. For some reason, I just don't like using ternary statements for something like this. I rather just have it be kind of explicit. Easier for me to understand and read, but I know a lot of people would have just done a ternary here, but I think it makes the code a little bit more complex. But that's just, you're welcome to try to change my mind. And one thing that I've learned in my day job is we try to keep these components as dumb as possible, and like they shouldn't need to know about, like they shouldn't be coupled to like the naming of the internal state. I don't know if I'm going to explain this well, but basically instead of having these be is expanded, you can make some type of computed like show caret down is equal to is expanded, and show caret up could be, or show caret right is the opposite. Now, is this a better approach? I don't know, but when you read through this, it just makes more sense, but you don't care how it's like set, right? So it's just like kind of decoupled from your internal logic. And if you have a more dumb component, or this stuff comes from external state, like, I don't know. That's what we do at work. It seems to make stuff a little bit cleaner, but it probably doesn't matter. Let's be honest. So I put the carets inside of the button, and when you first load the page, it doesn't show the carets at all. So why is that? Is expanded, set is expanded. This button should have at least shown the caret right? Does that sound right? Like there's no way this is anything other than true and false. Let's just go here and refresh this page. Somehow this is true. I mean, obviously this is true. Let me do this. It'd be easier to debug. So is caret down is false, is caret right is true. Okay, so is caret right is true. Oh, I know what I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm sorry, y'all. I've just named this poorly, so I'm getting myself confused. So maybe I'm just making this overly complicated, and I take back everything I just said 5 seconds ago. Maybe you shouldn't do this. All right, there we go. Okay, so we should probably toggle this. So instead of just setting it to true when you click it, let's just do this. Like this will be easier to just toggle, not that big of a deal. Now what we want to do is we want to have this caret be on the right of the page, and also it's kind of big, like we want it to be a little bit smaller. So instead of 32, let's do like 16. And then we're gonna make it go to the right. So with Tailwind, how do you do this? Well, I'm gonna wrap this in a div, and I'm gonna give this a display of flex. I think that'll put it on the right. So you have 2 elements that are on the right. You could also give it like space between, I believe, but I mean the button is so small that like there's no space, so it doesn't really matter. And what we could also do is we want to like align the items center. So I think you do like align center. No, items center. Okay, so item center is how you bring it down. We could try to push it over to the right some. Maybe give the actual text some margin right of 1. So I might have to wrap this in a div and just say margin right of 1 or something. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And what else do we need to do? Oh yeah, we got to add that caret inside, and obviously the panel, it looks like it's kind of spaced apart. So like we might need to do some like absolute positioning, because if you have other components on the page, I believe this dropdown is going to mess up the whatever it's called, the flow, the layout. So in the div itself, let me take a second and think about what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this position like relative so that I can give this position of the drop down panel absolute. Because if it's not absolute, then if you have like other stuff on the page, in fact, I could probably show you this real quick. If I have like other content all throughout the page, I believe the dropdown is going to like mess up the content, and that's not what we want. We want the dropdown to be like Z index loaded above. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to do that. I think I just need to give this like position of absolute, and that will make it so it doesn't mess up the layout or flow of the page. And I don't, since we gave it a position of absolute, I mean, I think we could probably do padding top or something of something. I don't think padding works for, let's do margin top. Okay, margin does work. So we'll do margin top. That looks better. We should probably give it like a fixed width of 20. Play around with this. No? Okay, 40. Okay, that looks pretty good. There is more. If you look at this image, there's like way more padding between the first item and the top of the panel. So let's just double that to like padding Y of 2. And then somehow let's get that chevron, or that's not even a chevron, that's like a triangle. So how do you do that? I mean, you could do some type of SVG, but the fact is that yeah, you could do a triangle in CSS. I just have to go Google how to do it. Triangle in CSS. I haven't looked at chat yet. I'll come back and look at chat. I'm kind of like getting way too distracted. Bottom top, bottom border. Is this really how you do it? Arrow. Yeah, this is how you do it. So let's do the first one. Arrow up. Now, this is one thing that, I mean, obviously we won't be able to do this in Tailwind. Like, there's no way you're going to be able to code exactly this stuff in Tailwind. So like, what do you typically do in Tailwind? Do I just go over to the globals and just define a new class called like up arrow? Or do I want to keep this more component based and just make a new like inline style here for the up arrow? So maybe I'll try this. I'll say like up triangle is a component that returns a div that has some styles on it. And we want to basically do all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know if this is the best approach, but hey, just make it work, you know, make it work, make it right, make it fast. So we're just making it work right now. So if we use a component-based approach to make an inline style, and we could probably make the size be a configurable thing that's passed in. So we could say size is a number that's passed in as an argument. And then we could basically interpolate some of the stuff. How's that look? Let's see. All right, moment of truth. Let's see how this works. So I'm going to put that up arrow inside of the panel itself. Or sorry, up triangle, I guess it was called. And I need to give it a size of, we'll just start with like 10 and see how that goes. Well, it needs to be a number, doesn't it? We have a little up arrow. So we'd also need to add some border top. We'll have to figure out how to do that. I don't know if this is even going to work, but we're trying to work on this little triangle here. And I'm trying to figure out a way to do it because like you have to basically add border top. And I've done this in a CSS battle before, I believe. So one thing you can also do is like you can actually play with the elements here. Since this is all inline styling, I mean, what we could do is make this be white. And we can move this up some. So position absolute. And we could say top of -10 pixels. All right, so it's hard to see, but it's right there. So top of -10, left of -10. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just 10. So that looks a little better. It is large. we might need to kind of shrink that down to, let's say, 5. Which means you got to bring this thing down too. So let's see if I can actually like drag this. That looks good. Now the issue is if I can make the border left be, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I might have to do a different approach. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'll be honest with you all. I don't know. If anyone knows, someone said clip path. I'm just not sure if, oh, hello. This is a good idea. Build a cube and rotate it 45 degrees. That's a good idea. That is a great idea. Let's see if we can do that. So he's saying like, instead of doing this triangle stuff, let's just make a cube, rotate it, and give the cube some border. It's like, my mind's just been blown right now. So let's just keep this component here just in case we still need it. But I'm going to say rotated cube. I'm going to say up triangle version 2. And we're going to make this a cube. So we probably need border left, border right, but I think I can say transform rotate 45 DEG, which will rotate it. And then we need to give it like a width of, let's do this, size. Make it square. This one, I think the border just needs to be like 2 or something. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make this like match with Tailwind, but I don't think I need background. Get rid of this. Oh, white is not defined. Okay, let's put that in a string. Okay, let's see. Is this so small I can't see it? Play around a little bit with the styles here. And we want to make this gray. Gray. But it's not going to be bordered by top. There we go. Border top. Do gray for both of those. Let's resave this page. Refresh it. What's going on here? Oh, I think the border is just too big. Let's try like 1 pixel. So I need to figure out like what is the actual color of the Tailwind gray. Where's my other sidebar? Like, you know how you get like the compute? Oh, it's right here. I don't got much real estate right now to find stuff, but I just need to find what the border is, which is this gray here. So what we're doing right here is kind of like really specific. So I'm kind of like getting out of Tailwind. I'm getting more into like CSS, but we are just going to try this and see what happens. Move it down some. So close. Ours looks smaller, so let's go back to, let's make this like 8 or 7. This is a really brittle component, let's be honest, but this is a really specific widget. So like we'd have to bring that up a little bit. That's too high. And I think the border in the actual like thing is darker. So let's, how do I change the border color? Border gray. Let's see what border I want to use. That looks better. It's like a little bit darker. I'm gonna make this into a variable here, just so that we're not like duplicating some stuff. You know, I could just make this whole thing. Do this, just since this is like completely in, but it's kind of not that important. All right, I think we did it. Whoever, let's see, who gave the suggestion about the rotated cube? Gabriel, you're a genius, man. Thank you for that comment. I think it's like when you're coding, sometimes you get into this tunnel vision where you just focus on one solution, but there could be like 5 other solutions that are better. But you're just so like focused in on one, you end up spending like hours trying to implement this one solution that isn't even the good solution. And that's why where I work, we try to do a lot of pair and mob programming, is because you have like 4 people, 3 people all looking at the same code, and like someone is going to say something that's going to make the code a higher quality, or going to point out like a better way to do some stuff. Go ahead. I mean, yeah, that looks pretty good, right? I mean, there's like little nitpick stuff. The chevron obviously doesn't match this chevron, but I think we did pretty good. Other than clicking on the item should probably collapse the drop down. So if you want to make this more like a realistic component, we could try to do that as well. This thing could be like an on option click. There, go here. So we can make a on option click that takes in a callback function. And we could have that just for right now, just be a function that does nothing. I think this is how you type it. Go ahead and just move some of the stuff to new lines. I really need to find the eslint. I'm sure I have another project somewhere where it's like set up correctly. No, I could also do this, like, how do you do it again? Is it like React functional component, or the functional component typed to be this? Delete that. So let's go back to the index, and we're going to add a function here so we know when like an option was clicked. We can do something with it. You just console log it right now, I guess. So console log the option and make sure I put it inside the actual dropdown. Like, what am I doing? Option any is not assignable to, oh. Go back here. This needs to take in an option, which is going to be a string, right? So now, like when I click on the thing, it should show it. And we want to make sure when you click on the option here, on click, we're just going to basically call that. And we should see some console logs. I'm going to check chat in just a second. I've been kind of neglecting chat. But if you click on the option, it goes item 1, 2, 3, and it prints out to the console. So now we have like a more reusable component we can use outside of it to actually get some cool stuff. So one last thing we should probably do is auto close the menu. So we're just going to add some additional logic to kind of before you click on the option to close it. So I can say set expanded to false. So now when I click on item 2, it just goes away. I think this dropdown is pretty much done.